All right. Good evening, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started for today's class. Before we begin, want to make sure everybody is aware the homework is due this Saturday. All right, until midnight or 11:55 p.m. All right. Make sure you have to submit both your GitHub link and GitHub pages. Just to make sure everybody understands the difference, your GitHub is when you submit your GitHub link is where your code is and everything. So when I click your GitHub link, it will take me to your code. Okay, the code that is deployed on your GitHub. Okay, GitHub pages is the one that if I click your GitHub page, it will actually open up your portfolio or whatever your homework that you're submitting. Okay, your actual web page. So you have to submit two links, one to your code and one to your actual website. Okay, is everybody clear on that? Ethan? Well, it's not up to me. So it's I think if you submit after midnight, it says late submission, and that's what I was telling everybody that don't get that late submission. It's not in my control to kind of reward that late submission, but submit something and then work with your TAs and see when they will start grading it. Even if they have graded it, you can go back and kind of change stuff and tell your TAs that just regrade them. But the late submission is the one that I cannot go back and change. So make sure you are submitting it before midnight. Okay? All right. Let's go here. So you guys are take the survey, submit comments and everything. Of course, I don't get to see who's saying what. Brent usually just kind of summarizes for me and then gives me what the class is saying, kind of the pulse for the class. What I hear is the pace is fast. Yes, it is fast. And I'm going to be straight with you. It's not going to slow down. This is what we signed up for. It's going to get crazier. It's not going to slow down, unfortunately. So this is as slow as it gets, actually. Once we get into JavaScript and beyond, HTML and CSS are going to look a little bit easier to you. You'll be like, oh, I can't believe I was kind of worrying about those stuff. Okay, so it's going to be fast. Some of the things that you can do is try to it's the second to the last one. Don't try to be like oh, I have to be a perfectionist or I have to like learn everything. It's more about getting the big picture. The small stuff will come to you. Okay, but as long as you understand the concept and what you're trying to do, that's more important over here. Okay, I'm more detail oriented and I try to go into details. But with my experience, I kind of save some time because I know what to look for. For you guys, I wouldn't say try to see if you're getting in too much detail and you're spending more time on it. So stop over there and make sure you're working what is more important. Okay. Some of the stuff I have next slide where I will say what's the time limit, and I've already talking about that, but I'll kind of make sure that I say that again. Um, Make sure that you understand the concept. That's more important over here. Okay. The coding part, yes, it will come with practice, but unless you are sure what it means, it's not going to make sense. Okay. That's the more important feedback when it comes to the lectures. Let's see. I know you guys are already there. There's a good Slack conversations going on. Keep that up. For people who are not participating, I would highly encourage, check your Slack messages. Maybe you're having the same issue that somebody else is and they have posted that issue already. Look at the threads. The TAs have been really active and they're responding as much as they can. Okay, office hours, please make sure to come to the office hours. I know a lot of people are coming. They're kind of forming, not an official, but I see what's happening is a study group is forming. Make sure that, if you want something official, Slack is there. You can create your own channels, kind of study group channels. I've seen some people have done that in previous cohorts. But make sure that you are coming for office hours, getting help. Again, I've seen a lot of people are, but people who are not, I'm not, again, I cannot read minds. I'm not sure if you need help or not. If you're not showing up for office hours, or I don't see Brent, he's a really nice guy. Talk with him. You want tutoring one on one. I think you have the option to submit it through Bootcamp Squad. But here's something extra, and it's not official. For those of you who showed up for demo day, thank you very much. But there were like my previous cohort students, and I was like talking to them, and I introduced the people who showed up, and they were asking, and I was saying, yeah, I'm teaching. I'm back to like HTML and CSS, back from React. I'm kind of going back now. So a couple of them offered, and they said, if anybody needs help, they have shared their email address with me. It's kind of like a private tutoring. Of course, they're not going to charge you anything. But they are really eager to help you guys. So if somebody needs extra help, let me know. I can share their contact information and see if you can work with them, some kind of a schedule. So that's available, but that's not like going through any official channel. But if you want tutoring, BCS or Bootcamp Spot has on the website, there's an option over there. You can submit an official request. For that part, I think it's limited. I think they do like 45 minutes to 1 hour. I'm not sure. If somebody has taken, please correct me. So 45 minutes to an hour, then it's a Zoom call. This would be more physical, and you can actually sit with somebody who's really wanting to help. Okay. Let's see. The other thing people have been asking me about books. I would not, to be honest, I haven't read a programming book in like, I don't know, like 10 years now. Um, to me, I would say, concentrate on the activities. Right now, the activities might seem okay, that it's not enough, but just wait. Actually, until like Saturday, you will see there are a lot more activities, lot more coding, especially when it comes to JavaScript. You will see there's a ton of activities that we would be doing. Okay, I would recommend, even if you just spend time on those activities, that's like more than enough. Okay. But still, the other thing is the homeworks. They are challenging, and I'll talk about the homework in a bit. But if you want something, go back, redo those homeworks. I said on the first day, what's the best part? Go ahead and delete whatever work you have done and redo it. Okay, that's the, if you want it to be super challenging, and see if you can recall, or if you understand the concept, you would be able to do that exercise again. It doesn't matter if it's there or not. So that's what I would recommend. Go back, redo those activities, redo the homeworks. If you submit an easy one, try to do the hard one. On your own time. Okay, you don't have to submit it. You will still be graded on what you submit, but if you want, go ahead and try the hard one later on. That would be the next challenge. Okay, but still, if you are looking for books, this is the site that I have personally used, but it's like a paid one. I think it's like $35 per month. It's a really good one for some tutorials. But there are free ones like free code bootcamp, free code camp. I think that's what it's called. You guys probably know more, so you can look at those websites for tutorials. But when it comes to book, again, I have personally not read both of them, but I've heard really good reviews. And from my previous students, I recommend it, and then I asked them, and they say that these both of these are really good books. Okay, so if you are a person who would like to read a book about programming, these two have been recommended. Okay. Again, these are in the PowerPoint. I have already uploaded all the PowerPoints. You can download and see those books over there. Okay. This is another one. It's a free book, and this is a site you can go and download it and take a look at it. But it's more JavaScript, so I would at least wait maybe like 3 weeks more before you start reading any books on JavaScript. All right, but if you're familiar with programming, go ahead and give it a try. All right, homework. Yes, homework is hard. It is hard. It is supposed to be difficult. Um, and it is supposed to be challenging. That's why you will see there are two different homeworks. One is considered an easier and a difficult one. Both of them are graded the same thing. If you submit an easier, you would be graded what you did. So it's not like if you submit a difficult one, you're going to get a higher grade. That's not how it works. Um, but the second last one, that's what I said in the beginning. If you're stuck in an issue for like 2 hours, you're staring at the screen and you have no idea what to do, please ask for help. People have been doing it, and I hope people see that you are getting responses from your colleagues, from your TAs also. So please, if you are stuck somewhere, ask for help. Okay, 2 hours is the limit. If for 2 hours you are still not making any progress, please make sure to ask for help. Okay. All right. Again, before we start, the division of class, I said, spend 45% of your time on your homework, and the 55% should be on the week that we are studying. Okay. Again, I've seen this and it happens. Maybe it's happening to you guys. People put like 100% of their time on the homework, and by the time the next homework rolls in, then you have to go back and redo those activities, kind of see what's going on. Please don't get into that habit. Again, spend 45% of your time on homework and make sure you're doing this week's activities, because your homework will always be for the week that is gone. Okay, it's not going to change. You will always have the same issue. Okay, this is the best time to time management, because later on, if you don't do it right now, it's going to get really difficult. Okay. All right. So today's class, we are going to look at some little bit more CSS. Not too complicated, but I'm going to talk about the CSS typography and Google Fonts, pseudo classes. I'm going to talk about pseudo classes, and then we're going to start. We're going to have an introduction about Bootstrap. Okay. A little bit about Bootstrap, but Saturday's class is like 100% on Bootstrap, and the Saturday class is the crux of Bootstrap. The concepts are difficult on Saturday. Again, they're related to Bootstrap, but they're extremely important if you want to use Bootstrap the right way. Okay, but we'll come to that when we get there. For today, I'm going to introduce you what Bootstrap is and how do you use Bootstrap. Okay. All right. Any questions before we proceed? All right. So what is CSS typography? Okay, so this has to deal with your fonts. That's all it is. Okay, your font size, what font you are using, font weight, font family, and all that stuff. Okay. Now, before we look at some of the properties, some of the CSS that comes with your fonts, you will see is line height, and you guys have been using this right now in homework. I see some of the CSS code. Oh, your homework, when you're asking a question, I would recommend include your GitHub link, so that it's kind of easier for us to see your GitHub link and what code is going on. So push your code to your GitHub and share your GitHub. That's the easier way, and quickly the TS can kind of look at what's going on. If possible, your GitHub pages also, because we would be able to right click inspect and see what's exactly going on. All right, coming back to this, so some of the properties are line height, font size, line length, letter spacing, sans serif, and serif. So I'm going to talk about all of these in a minute. All right, so the best way is to kind of visualize. So your line height, if you see, that's the basically the height between two different lines. Okay, so that kind of adds some spacing between two lines, and it kind of starts above your font. Okay, between these two, between the line heights, you will see there is some spacing, and that's what kind of differentiates your text. Okay, now what's the font size? Font size, as the name says, it's the size of your font. Okay, now let's see, Nicole, right? All right, so do you understand font size? What's the font size if you look at the picture? Okay, do you see anything that you don't understand about font size, or anything different about font size? So line height kind of makes sense, that starts from here, ends over here. What about font?
So the text ends a little bit above where the font size ends.
Okay, this thing, the top one?
Underneath.
Underneath, okay, yeah, this thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so any idea why this is? Why is there space over there?
Is it kind of like having?
So no, it's not padding. Its font size is literally the size of the font. So this is my size, but it kind of adds something over here. Why is that? What is it? Lowercase j or p? P, anything, right? It kind of comes down. So that's what it is. It's still the font size, but all the fonts that you see are above, right? But if there's a p, that's where it comes from, or a g, lowercase g, right? So this space is reserved for those letters, but still it's the font size. Okay, people kind of get confused and they're like, oh, is this extra, as Nicole was saying, padding or anything? It's none of those. It's literally just the font size, and this space is reserved for the letters which come in lowercase and kind of go below the line. Okay, now line height and font size, the difference. Usually you will see line height is 20% more than the font size. So let's suppose your font size is 10 pixels. Your line height usually would be 20% more. So that would be plus 2, 12 pixels. Generally that's the case, and that's the recommended height for a line height. Again, you can put line height anything you want, but recommended from the standard perspective, you will see that the font size, the relationship between the font size and line height is the line height would be usually 20% more than the font size. Okay, so when you are setting a font size on your websites, maybe take this into consideration, that keep the line height which is 20% more than whatever your font size is. Yes.
So is that 10% above, 10% below?
Yes. Yeah. That's how it will distribute it. Yeah. That is not under our control, but that's the calculation. It would kind of space it out evenly. Yeah. Okay. All right. Any questions? Everybody understand the difference between line height and fonts? Okay. All right. Let's see. Serif and sans serif. Okay. You must have seen this word a lot when you're working with CSS. The difference between this is sans serif means without, and you will see these things over here. These things. So this font, any font that has strokes at the end, is called serif, and any font that does not have these strokes is called sans serif. That's the difference between these two. So if you are confused that you keep seeing these words, are these fonts or what are these? These are not fonts. These are, I would say, like classes or like a category of fonts. So any font can have this, or any font can have also sans serif. Okay. So you choose when you are defining your fonts. You choose whether you want this or whether you want this. Okay. Usually, again, you will see the recommendation is to use sans serif. That's what you will see in most of the websites. Kind of the font family that they use. Again, both are available, but that's how you will see that most of the time, especially from accessibility perspective, from visual perspective, from UX perspective, the recommendation is to use sans serif fonts. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? Everybody understand the difference now? Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and look at these fonts. And again, this might be like a repetition because you guys are working on your homework, and I see a lot of people are using these properties. But I still want to make sure if you are not using, how does these look like? Okay. So let's go ahead. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it fonts. Create a in HTML. Okay, and then I'm going to create my CSS. Okay, template this out. Then I'm going to include my style. Oh, that's why. Because this is outside, it should have helped me. Okay. I don't know if you guys noticed, I heavily depend on Visual Studio to kind of complete some of the stuff. As soon as if it is not completing, and I know it should complete, it kind of comes to me naturally. I'm like, okay, there's some mistake that I did. Okay, because otherwise this should have been complete. And the issue was that this was outside this folder, so that's why it wasn't actually showing up. All right. So let's go ahead. I'm going to create like 3 paragraphs and add some ipsum lorem text over there, and then we are going to work on the fonts that we saw. All right. So go ahead and say H1. This is first. Okay. Let's go ahead and I'm going to make 2, 3. This is second. This is third. Formatted. Okay. Let's go ahead and make sure this is running. All right. All right. What's the? How do you add a new line? Is it BR? BR, right? Okay. So add some line because these paragraphs are going to get a little bit bigger. Put here 1. Okay. All right. You guys know about the ipsum lorem generator? You guys be using it? There's a, so it kind of gives you free text that you can use without actually coming up with something, right? There's one called Bacon Ipsum Generator. That's what I use in the class usually. Very cool one. So you can generate how many paragraphs you want. Let's put that one 3. And this is a text it generates. So I'm going to use this one. Here. That's one. It's supposed to be the second one. And go ahead and add a third one as well. All right. So these are my paragraphs. All of them are here. And then now we'll go ahead and style some of these using the typography that we saw. Okay. All right. Let's see. It kind of gives you some options over here. So what does these mean? Why do you see more than one? Let's suppose, let's use, choose this one. Okay, you see the font change. So what this means is, the first one is that this is the font that I want. Okay, if for some reason this is not available or this fails to load, this is the backup. This is what it means. Okay, sans serif that I want these to be not having that stroke at the end. Okay, and if you remove the sans, you should see the stroke come up. Well, okay, so in this font there is no difference between both of them, so that's okay. Okay, now what happens if both of these fail? For some reason, let's suppose they are not loading. Defaults whatever your browser has, whatever your browser setting, whatever you set the font of your browser in the settings, that's what it will come back down to. Okay. All right. Excellent. Let's go ahead and let's do the font weight. And this time I'm going to add some classes. So let's say paragraph 1. I'm going to create a class paragraph 1. Give it a font weight of say 500. Okay. Semicolon and add the class here. Okay. Did it load? I don't see it. I should have. Let's see. Let's try border. Oh, that's fine. Okay, so font weight kind of makes your fonts bolder or less bold, and it has different options over there. Okay, the second one would be, let's try font size. So let's change our font size to be 50px, and then let's go ahead and add the class over here. Okay, so font size is increasing the size of the font. Let's do the last one as line height. So go ahead and create under CSS, and this time let's use line height to be 40px. Okay, and let's add this over here. Class, and so line height kind of adds the spacing between your between the text. Okay, everybody understand the difference between line height, font size, font weight? Okay. All right. So let's do the next exercise. It's kind of similar to this. I want to make sure just give this a try a few different things, and then I'm going to show you how to use Google Fonts in your code. Okay. So the exercise that you will be working on is 07. All right. Everybody should have access to GitLab, right? So go ahead and do a pull, copy that exercise over the unsolved one, and then start working on it. Okay. Let's go ahead and open this. This is 07. The what? Yes, yes. 07, yeah. So what do you have to do? Okay, so you should have an HTML template, HTML file. You just have to use these 4 properties, create 3 different paragraphs, and then use each one of them on a different one. Make sure it is working. Try different fonts. And then we will look at how to include our Google fonts in our page. Under what?
Commit under repository on GitLab. Yeah.
Under what commits?
Yeah. Which part?
Oh, so did you clone the repository on your local computer? That was the first step. So clone the repository on your local computer, and then you will have all the folders, and then copy the exercise over somewhere else and then do it. Don't start modifying the same folder that you cloned.
Yeah, I mean, well, you don't need to do that. That was the personal page that you did on GitHub the other day. So when you see it that way to this one, you don't need to do anything except remember the ads. Because that's just going to be all your activities now. With GitHub, you want to set up a different folder for your homework and stuff. I would keep this one just for that. Just so you can so the first thing so we're in week 2 now. So this means that this is week 1 is the last thing. So you want to close this up. So the first thing this is the minutes. So last week is week 1, so we're in week 2. And then activities. No. So there's a readme in there, and then your file is inside out. And so again, what I would do is copy that, paste it into different locations. So that you're not overriding so like Daniel talked about, you can always delete it. Yep. So now we go there. So now we add so one activities you're on those set. Yep. And so again, just like I would you can open up the readme, you're not doing anything with that. Inside the So they're using HTML. I would copy that. Like, do you have this on your desktop? Did you ever like repost your desktop?
Well, first you're gonna want to
Okay, let's do that first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, so you're yeah, so yeah. So both of you can kind of follow along. So open up your terminal. And then your desktop.
Okay, so yeah, so right now, the last time I did guess what I'm getting at is that so you have
Like you want it to go on your
your browser.
So classic is I would say to actually work. You don't want to work in this repo, right?
Yeah, you can get pulled, that'll pull all the old stuff from that Daniel's added.
not you get
Okay. So what it is, so you see what here is
no, you can put it anywhere you want.
now they created 3 different folders, one day, one class, and one.
And then every
So
time
yeah,
you
so
come to
anytime
class, you can just go into this folder and you get full and it'll pull and you're like, okay, just
Exactly.
so like as we have like this
Okay, yeah, so then you can leave that as SSE.
actually like can you like navigate to this folder?
And now so you take a while to pull all that content. And so now oh,
I know you're gonna need it loud.
well, so you just want to your artists.
Which one's the navigate to that folder?
So basically, what this is now, another folder inside this folder that's gonna have all of this. Now, there is some stuff like the layout's nice because they show you like it's all formatted, whereas you're using some but yeah, for the most part, you should get that already set. And so what I do is like I set up stuff like and then so you go in, okay, so we work on this copy files, new stuff from the folder. I set up my work folder by like date. This date.
Yeah, so everything you will add, you have to sort of repository and pull that stuff on that. Yeah, so everything, so that's, yeah. But I guess what comes out of you, actually falls down.
Yeah.
I never have talked about a class that I guess bunch of updates. So you do have it built already, you just haven't gotten like all of your access. Like there's possibly one user.
Try closing, get back.
I don't know why it's not working on this. We've obviously done it previously. I don't know, maybe you were just whatever you were doing.
All the styles, all the CSS properties,
It might not be.
the brackets. But, so you need to have a selector that goes
And
from
that's
the
just
brackets.
like each other, like
So
every
the
class.
selector will do whatever they have some target to do those
And then
CSS
you'll have like all
properties.
the different.
So for example, the header, there's, so yes, it's not that stuff, header needs to be the header document.
And you have the E.
I did it.
So you did have to use the generic HTML tag for that with anything inside of it. So it's just an HTML tag.
Yeah, so now you've got access to it, but you've always got that here.
It looks like you hired.
So let's go.
So, since you have this newsletter, just open up those users in there. Do you have any questions about now that you have it, all you're doing, I think, is adding.
Yeah, but so this, so you will want to make sure you can do this. But for now, it might.
That's how I was doing it. I was just downloading everything.
So you install the.
Yeah. You may want to set up
Like, how do you do this?
bomb stuff because then you have to enter your credentials. And that's.
Yeah, I think
Right.
I don't want to go back. So I'll just set my password.
And sometimes you
And do it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I remember when
Yeah.
we were setting it, like, even when I'm not.
It's just for a specific.
I guess.
Did you generate that?
So yeah, you're gonna be just changing those.
So yeah, but now you know you're setting up your stuff.
If you're wanting to switch for each paragraph. And I see it.
So you can still see the activity. Yeah.
Right now, you don't. Well, you
Okay, so where does that link up to?
So this is your.
Well, that's what it is. There's a link. So the reason so yeah, start with that HTML. You can navigate to wherever you have saved.
I just copied and pasted it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where did you copy? Okay, but that's not the entire. Yeah, that's gonna be.
Have you been able to like Do you have it like previously?
So,
Can you just try again? Do you clone and paste it again?
so this is the so this will open it up. You can see when it showed the browser.
Oh, yeah.
Browser, but you right click.
Sorry. Yeah, I know.
You can leave that open. Sorry, back to you.
Yeah, because like for mine, I just set it up so like I don't have like a password number, so like I never dealt with that.
Right now, what you're gonna need to do is create the CSS
Try doing get close to one.
Style, and then you're gonna scroll down here. Change any text.
I would give it Thank you.
And you've still got it on Apple. So that's what you want to do first.
I got this one.
All right, let's look at the next part. Okay. So the fonts that we have been using are given to us by our laptop, browsers, and whatever Windows or Mac have installed. But there's a way that you can use fonts that are out on the internet. So one of the main ones that you will see these being used a lot are called Google fonts. So these are the fonts that Google has made, okay, and they are freely available. It's open source. So if you Google fonts, you will come across different type of fonts, and these are the fonts that Google have created. Well, not literally Google, but somebody have created and they have kind of hosted or given permission to Google that this can be used. Okay, one of the most famous ones you will see is the Roboto font. This is really popular these days, and a lot of UX UI designers you will see are kind of telling people to use this font. Okay, now how do you use these fonts in your website? It's pretty easy. Select a font that you want, click plus. At the bottom, Google is going to give you exact code that you can include in your website, and you can start using this font. So over here, it tells me that I can use this font by including this link in my web page. So let's go ahead and do this. And then in my CSS, I have to do this. Okay. So the first part is I selected Roboto font. So I'm going to go ahead and add this link to my web page, HTML. Okay. The next thing is I need to include this CSS in my custom CSS. So if I go to my styles, let's go ahead and change one of the H ones. So it's a H1. Okay, this is what it's saying. So now go ahead and run this. So this is my all the H1s. These are the ones that got changed because of this. So if I comment this out, this is the default font for H1s. Now if I use the Google font Roboto, it kind of changes to this. Okay. You guys will get a chance to try the same thing, but the more important part over here is it gives us two things. The first thing is that I can use fonts other than that are available to me from my browser or my laptop, from my operating system such as Windows and Mac, right? The second thing is understand that I'm including something that is out there on the internet. Okay, when we get to Bootstrap, you will see we are kind of using somebody else's CSS or fonts or even HTML. Okay, in this case, we are using fonts that are available on this website. We can include this in our link, and then we can use them in our style.css. Okay, by default, this font is not available on your computers. Okay, the only reason it's able to render this font is because you have included this link over here. Okay, another interesting part is the question would be, hey, what if this font is not available? Now Google has a timer thing over here, and they ensure that 99.8% of the time this site will be up and running and you will have this font available. Okay, the load time, this tells me that if I'm using this link, it's going to load pretty fast. That you won't see any latency when you're trying to load a font from Google's side. Okay, and if everything else fails, what's going to happen is just going to default to whatever font that you have set in your browser. Okay, so any questions? Yes.
Yeah, how did you get approved for that?
All right. Let's do this one more time. Okay. So let's suppose I want to load this one, Lex and Mega. All right. The plus sign. Click the plus sign. That's it. And click this window. On the embedded, it will give you the code to link on your HTML and the code that you need to put in to your CSS. Okay, so now you already did the paragraph one. Go ahead and try this. Add some different fonts. See if you can customize them and make sure it kind of loads up on your website. Okay, look at the customized one also. Well, this one only has one option, but Roboto has quite a few options over here. So if I go ahead, include this, and then you can have a bit of different kind of fonts that you can include. So give it a try, see what happens, and see first try to include the simple one, and then see if you can include a little bit different styles in your website using Google Fonts. Search Google Fonts, and it's the first link, fonts.google.com. Let's try this one. Roboto 400 700 I. Yes.
This like lorem ipsum with food, where'd this come from?
This thing?
All the like this lorem ipsum but with food.
Yeah, I searched for bacon ipsum.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
somebody has created this one. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Make me hungry.
I don't know if you've run into this problem. I just ran into it. So I was cloning the whole first, like all the big Git lab. I was trying to clone it, and then it had me try to authorize it through the Git bash, and I put in the wrong password, and it said, so it denied it. And I tried it again, and it doesn't let me. It doesn't prompt up that window no more. It just completely just denies the access after
Really?
the first attempt. Yeah, I've tried it like twice, like close the whole Git bash and everything,
Okay.
and it just won't let me. So,
You didn't set up the SSH thing
um,
for GitLab.
it didn't like since it didn't let me see the homework. I don't think I ever set one because I set one up at the beginning, like through the
For-
pre-work and stuff.
Right,
like that.
right. So that was for GitHub.
Yeah.
So-
So I would just have to just rinse and repeat.
Yeah,
with
for
GitLab.
GitLab also. Yes.
Okay, cool,
Yes.
cool.
So you wouldn't have to enter your password. And
where,
everything.
yeah, because like I have like, or on some of them it's like, oh, this one has to be capitalized. This one doesn't matter. So
Yeah,
I have like
yeah,
the
yeah,
same
that's
variation
right.
password,
Yeah.
and I forget which one's
Right,
capitalized.
right, right. So if you set it up the SSH way, then you
Okay.
won't have to.
Yeah,
put
I'll
it.
just follow the pre-work and just do
Yeah.
it for the GitLab then.
Yes.
All right.
All right, so let's do this. Let's take a break, and then we have two more topics. So I will continue that. So let's take a break. 15 minutes. We'll start at around 7:45. Okay. If you're working on this activity, keep working on it. Make sure you are able to load the fonts. Let me know if anybody has any more questions, and we'll start back at 7:45.
Generally, if you're just looking for brownie, has no. If I set up something
So
How's it going? So
good. How are you?
good.
Staying awake.
Staying awake. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good.
So I'm right now in my homework. I'm getting ready to go into like styling my next page.
Mhm.
Is it best to just do a whole new style sheet, or is it best to keep it all in one?
So for now, keep it one. I don't think it's if it is growing like too big, then well, personally, I would kind of divide it by page.
That's kind of just
Um,
how I feel, just because like
yeah,
it
that's how
took
I
me
would
it
do
took
it.
me so long to get to where I'm at. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh man, I
yeah,
just feel like if I put something else in there, that's because you have to adjust like the margins on like
right,
the header and like, the content.
right.
So I'm like,
So the ones that are in your previous style sheet, you can still reuse them. You don't have to rewrite them. You can still refer to them, right?
so then I guess I could just technically create a whole new class.
Whole new class. If but if you are able to reuse some of them, don't
Right.
create. Yeah, if there is something that is unique, then only
Yeah,
create
like
a
my
class
header,
and a
my
new. Yes,
footer.
those would be common, so you don't have to create a
Right.
new one.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah,
All right, cool. How was the thing yesterday?
it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Quite a lot of people showed up over there. Yeah,
Yeah. I got home and I was like, I can make it. And I was like, all
yeah.
the kids were like, I have 4 kids, so it's like,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow.
so I was like, My wife was all stressed out.
Yeah.
Maybe I should stay home.
So, well, you're already like Tuesday and Thursday in class, so
Yeah.
you're going on a Wednesday too.
Exactly.
So.
That was the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, it would have been cool to go though.
Yeah.
I've seen like the building. It's like a pretty cool.
Oh, really? Okay, that was my first time over there. Yeah, I haven't seen that. Yeah, they have a few meetups around this area, so keep an eye out for it. Attend as many as you can. You will see you will kind of run into the same set of people because some of the students from here, a lot of you, because they encourage them to go there a lot. So you'll see some of the previous students, some current students. So it's kind of a good networking event.
That's cool. Yeah, and that's like why I wanted to go.
Yeah,
But I figured
it's
that
more about the network than
yeah,
anything else.
exactly. That's cool. All right.
It wasn't.
I was wondering
Hello.
if you could just
Yes.
look at something real quick.
Okay.
So, I'm just having trouble with the home assignment. Like, I'm not sure why this isn't going inside of here. So for my HTML code, I put it in section, and then I tried putting this part in a div and also this in a div, and it's still coming outside of the box. And then I tried
So
removing
you're
the
trying
divisions.
to move these into this. Okay, show me the code for this. So the name, I'm guessing is this. And then is there a div missing for this one? Oh yeah. So this is this div, right? And
So I put both of these divs inside this section.
oh, so this is your section?
So this whole, like where the black border surrounding is my section.
Okay.
And then I would try to put
Okay.
split my name into one div, and then I tried putting like the navigation bar in one div, and then I tried taking them out, and it still had the same effect. So I'm not really sure.
So
if
the thing with div is it takes up the whole space.
Okay.
So if this is a div and this is a div, it's always this div is if you right click and do an inspect, right click and inspect. Yeah, click that arrow button. Yeah, hover over here. So you see this is taking the div actually takes up the whole space. That's the
Okay.
problem. So that's where the float left and right
Okay.
comes in.
Okay.
That's what you'll have to do. Yeah,
All right.
div always takes up the
Yeah.
whole space.
Thank you.
Right. So basically, your side is your div, Go back.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the next topic is pseudo styles or pseudo classes. Okay, so what are these? These are CSS classes that kind of affect the state of any HTML element. Okay, now I'll show you an example what it actually means. But the syntax for pseudo classes is, and you guys must have seen something like a colon focus, or you might have seen a colon hover, right? So these are called pseudo classes. The syntax is any HTML element on the left side, okay, colon, and then a CSS class. This is called a pseudo class. All right. Now these are already defined for you from CSS. All right. Focus is one of them. Hover is one of them. Let me show you some more, and then I'll show you how to code them. So let's search pseudo classes. Let's look at the pseudo classes here. Okay, these are all the classes, pseudo classes that have been defined for you, and you can use any one of them. Okay, again, what do? They change the state of any HTML element. All right, focus, hover, active. These are more commonly used. Let's see if there's anything else. Visited. Okay, now what do these do? Let's take a look at the code and kind of write these out so that we can see what these are actually doing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, create a folder, pseudo class. Okay, create two files, index.html, and then create another one, style.css. Okay, in my index, link my style CSS. All right, and then this should be good. Okay, all right, so I'm going to create a link. All right, create an anchor tag, and then I'm going to style them using pseudo classes. All right. Oops. All right. H1, let's say demo of pseudo classes. All right, so I'm going to have a anchor tag. All right, one of the properties href doesn't have to go anywhere, so I'm just going to put a hash because it doesn't need to go in. What I want to show you guys is how do you use those pseudo classes. Okay, I am a link. Let's call this. Okay. Let's make sure this is running. Open with live server. Okay. Let's make the font a little bit bigger so that you guys can see this. So just let's say font size 60 px. Okay. All right. So what I said was the syntax for pseudo classes is the HTML element colon and one of the classes that you want. Okay, let's see what does hover do. Okay, so my HTML element A, all right, and then my class pseudo class hover. All right, so after this it's all CSS. The same properties that you have seen, you can use the same properties inside the pseudo classes also. For example, let's change the background color when the hover happens. Oops. Okay, so let me comment this out first. So what does hover mean when it comes to this? Hover means when I bring my mouse on top of it. All right, that's hovering. Now, if I add this CSS and then I hover, see what will happen. Kind of changes it. Okay, so anything that changes the state, those are called your pseudo classes. Again, the syntax is any HTML element. This could be a div, h1, p, doesn't matter. Okay, you can use the same pseudo classes for any HTML element. All right, the second on the right is your pseudo classes. And all of those pseudo classes are defined in our over here. Okay, so we saw focus, we saw hover. Let's try active. So let's see what active does. Let's try the focused one, because if I use active, then I'll have to, you'll see what happens. I'll have to clear my cache. All right, so background color to, let's try green. Okay, now what have I said? Hover is this. Now when this link over here, this HTML element gets the focus, I need the background to change to green. Now how do I get focus on this? What is it?
Click.
You see, I'm holding it over here. Okay, click, or the second one was tab. So if we hit tab, 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 kind of gets the focus. So once this link or this HTML element has focus, it's going to change the background color. Okay, hover class. Let's look at the last active one. Background color stripe. Okay, hover, focus. Oops, active. Okay, active is when I am clicking it and holding it. That's what active does. Okay, so these are, again, it doesn't matter. You can change this to a div. The same styles will all apply for a div, or change it to an H1. It doesn't matter. The important part is the syntax. The syntax is any HTML element on your left side, colon, and then a pseudo class. Okay, and what are those pseudo classes? All that are defined over here. The most common ones are the ones that I showed you: hover, focus, active. I think there's a link. Let's see. Disabled is also one of them. Visited. Let's go back. Okay, so what are these doing? These are changing the state of your HTML elements. That's what pseudo class. So you might have seen this. You may not know what these are called, but these are called your pseudo classes, and they kind of change the state of your HTML elements. Okay, now here's a interesting. Let me share you guys a GitHub repo from somebody. I'm going to post it on class activities. Okay, it's somebody who has created hover.css. Take a look at this also. All of this that you see on the screen is done using the pseudo classes. So you see the first says grow. So if you just hover over it, it's going to grow. Shrink kind of shrinks the size. Pulse is pulsing. So somebody has actually created all these effects using pseudo classes. Let's grow, rotate, float, sync, bob. Oh, this is nice. Okay, so all of this is actually done using the pseudo classes. So this is kind of a little bit more advanced, but I just wanted to show you guys. Take a look at it, see if you can incorporate in your code. But this is kind of interesting. But the main point is that all of this is done using the pseudo classes. Now this kind of changes the state. Later on next week we'll see JavaScript that kind of adds more activity to our pages. But using CSS, this is the kind of things that you can add in your code. Okay, and these are called pseudo classes. All right, any questions? All right, so let's do the next activity. I want to make sure that you guys are able to include, this is number 9, pseudo classes. So look at the activity, it's very similar to what I just showed you. So use some of the pseudo classes over here. If you want to try something different, give it a try and see how it works. But the activity is saying that you should be using hover, focus, active. Try those first. Yeah, active, focus, hover, those 3 ones. And this is activity number 9. So just do the way I did, create an HTML file, add a CSS, link both of them first, and then start working on the activity.
whatever you type there is what you so that's going to be your CSS. So if you wanted to make style for that to start with, so first we do an A. So those are squares. And so for this one, it's just making it. Sorry, I'm not texting. Sorry. So remember the pseudo classes with those, you have to identify them on the control selected item. So you would do this. So this is going to apply no matter what. We're just making it big. So now another so now you're going to choose the item that you want to so you want to so you want to tell it what you're targeting. You want to target that thing. And you want to put it so you want to do I only want this style to apply when I make this action. So what do you want to do So now basically what you're saying is the styles are good to use, but when you want it to apply, take time how they're supposed to So actually, let's so we'll wrap this one up.
Yeah, better have the body, body, don't do it, not the back.
But you know, anything you want to combine, so right now you've got a full filter and you have to have so right now, there you go. You want to plug your head. So enter twice, so you can put your foot through, and now you close your head. First you're going to open up your head. And then the last one you need to close is you can always get close with that. That's the very last thing. So your body is angle. So you're gonna follow this example right here, and then you're just gonna choose this together. Okay, so right now, if you want it to actually be activated, you put in some one in there. But if you just want it to act like a link, then go back to it. You can just put a pound. So inside, this is your, and then this will basically be a dummy. It'll show up like a link, but it's not anything. But you still need to add text to it. And so whatever text you want will go inside. So what do you want to, whatever you want to call. This is a link. And so now, yeah, so now it's showing up, and it styles it because you pulled it, it's an A tag, so it looks like. No, they don't have to just be images. In this case, it's what they're limited, but the pseudo class is going to work on so you could put that on a paragraph. Like if I hover over this paragraph, well, not go somewhere. So like if you put it, would actually redirect. Like the pseudo class is just going to basically add the CSS stuff to correct something. So just give you a specific reason that it's here. So you would say like, normally you just read it, I want my paragraph to look like this. But if someone hovers over it, the text to get bigger. So that will only apply though if you're hovering over it. That's what the pseudo class is for. It kind of gives you, I don't want to say logic, but it gives you that kind of element of like interactivity, right? It's like I'm going to something and it's going to change how I respond to it. So go to your CSS here. Okay, so let's go back to us. We went into that, yeah, up in your head. Those things will get you right away. Yeah. So now it's not spelled correctly, but it is matching your CSS, so that should be and so go in there. You're saying hover.
All right, let's go ahead and start our next topic. Any questions so far? What we have done? Good. All right. Before we begin this, you cannot use this in your current homework. I'm just letting you guys know. What I'm going to show you, you cannot use that in your current homework. There's a next homework this Saturday that you can use all this stuff over there. Okay? You have to do what? Pseudo class is fine. Yeah, not this one. Not what I'm telling now. If you're using pseudo classes, that's okay. That's actually like the next level. That's okay. This is more important. That cannot be used in your current assignment. All right. Just a quick recap. We looked at HTML. We looked at CSS, HTML. Now we understand that HTML is just text, right? The fonts and all that stuff. Where is that coming from? It's coming from CSS, right? When we use reset.css, we saw that everything was wiped out, and we saw the true face of HTML, right? What it is, it just text on your page, and CSS is the one that is kind of adding styles to our HTML. Okay. This was, if it's basically HTML, it's just like Notepad. But when you add styles to it, it's kind of like a Word document. You can change font, sizes, and all that, color and all that stuff. Okay. But CSS is probably, this is how you guys are feeling using CSS, right? You guys are working on your portfolios. It's not easy. I agree. It's not. I wouldn't say it's not intuitive, but it is difficult, right? It's what, but once you get it, you will see that you will be like, okay, I understand what's going on, but it takes a little bit of time, a little bit of practice. Okay. Um, Before I actually introduce Bootstrap or whatever, I want you guys to look at activity number 10. Yeah, activity number 10. Just take a look at it, work in your tables, work with your partner or neighbors over here. And then the goal of that activity is to understand where the CSS is coming from. Before you even do that, run that code. There shouldn't be any change required for class activity number 10, and you should be able to run that code as it is. Okay. Once it shows up, number 10, try to make sense of it and try to find out where the CSS is coming from. So this is number 10. Okay. Oops. All right. It should have just one HTML file. Okay. Run that code and see what comes up. Once it comes up, try to find out where that CSS is coming from. Okay, make sure everybody on your table understand. If you got it, explain it to somebody on your table and make sure that everybody understand where the CSS is coming from. And then I'm going to go ahead and explain that. So once I download the code and I run it, this is what I get.
You want to inspect the code?
Inspect the code or look at the HTML and figure out where this is coming from. Okay, because if you see the folder structure, there's no style.css included over here, right? It's just HTML. And if you look at the code, you don't see a style tag or inline styling also. So where is the CSS coming from? All right, was everybody able to run the code, inspect it? Okay, so where's the HTML document getting its styles from? From the web links, all right? Okay, and how does the browser know which HTML element to style? How does it know it needs to style this or this section or the button? Let's go back here. Okay, and how am I telling? I'm using the class, right? This is how you style it. But where is this class coming from? It's not the class that we have written, right? If I look over here, there's no CSS style. If I go above, I don't have any style tags over here. There's no inlining. Okay, so where is this class coming from? From where? What was that? The links at the bottom and the top, actually, both. Okay, so what is going on? This is called Bootstrap. You will hear the name Twitter. Yes, the social website Twitter. Twitter Bootstrap. Bootstrap was created from Twitter. They were having issues where people in the company were creating websites or creating some local products, and everybody was following different styles. Right. The the shade of blue that Twitter has, somebody has a different shade. Somebody had a different one. So what they did was they came up with generic CSS, which they sent it out to the whole company, and the purpose was that everybody would be able to use the same styling and would get the same font, same color, same font height, and everything, right? So they came up with a CSS that everybody can use, and they named it Bootstrap. It became so popular that it's now open source, and a lot of companies actually use Bootstrap to style their components, right? The benefit of this is that I don't have to worry about styling this. If you see the HTML code over here, and I'll code some of this. None of the CSS I have written, right? It's not anything over here. We are just using the CSS that is defined in somebody else's CSS file. You see this .css? This is equivalent of our style.css, right? The only difference is somebody else has created a CSS and uploaded to a central repository that I can include in my CSS, in my HTML, and start using those classes. Okay. Now, if you open this in your browser, you will be able to see the actual CSS code that goes behind it. Remove the min. Looks much better. All right, this is where the CSS is coming from. All right, there's no magic or anything. You are just reusing those styles. You see the buttons, select, text area, all of this. Twitter has created the CSS for you, and we are just using in our code. And every time I call button or body or any other HTML element, this is the CSS that kicks in. Yes. How did I make it so nice? All right. So you see on the top, when I copied this link, it had .min. Okay, just remove that .min, and it's going to make it nice and more human readable. Okay. Remember the .min at some point later on in the week, maybe next week or something. I'm going to come back and you will see what .min actually means. But if you see a .min anywhere, just remove the min, and then you will be able to see any code in more human readable form. Okay. .min is more for our browsers, and we will talk about what it is. But this is how you will be able to see. So this is the actual code which is available. It's open source. You can download it and make any changes to it and start using it. Okay. If you don't want to make changes, you can use as it is, and there's documentation. I'll walk you through the documentation. Okay. But you will see a lot of companies. This is open source. I've seen that they will download the CSS from Bootstrap and then change some things over here. For example, the colors, right? By default, you will see that Bootstrap has kind of different colors over here, but some companies are, oh, I don't like this color. I want my buttons to be in a different shade, which kind of corresponds to my company standards, right? So you can download the same code and change the color and then start using Bootstrap. Okay, that's the benefit of this. What else? So the code is available. You have to use it in your HTML and just know what classes to use. Again, you don't have to remember which class does what. There's a whole documentation, and I'll walk you through the documentation, and we can build these components and like really quickly. Okay. Again, you cannot use this in your assignment. I know it makes so much easier without writing any CSS that we use them. Next Saturday, you will have this opportunity. Okay. So before I show you the code and see how do we navigate through the documentation, everybody understand the concept, what Bootstrap is bringing to the table. How do we, what is the benefit of using Bootstrap? Okay, again, Bootstrap is not the only CSS out there. If you Google, there are a lot more. Bootstrap were kind of like the more initial ones, but there are different CSS files that people have created, different styles, and you can use any one of them. The concept is exactly the same. They have open source. This is Bootstrap, but there are a lot more. Okay, Bootstrap is more popular one. They keep it updated. I think right now we are on Bootstrap 4. We'll look at some of the components that Bootstrap has and how quickly you just have to do copy paste and you will have those components. Okay, from the concept wise, any questions? Good? All right, so let's go ahead and if you Google Bootstrap 4, again, we need to learn, we need to understand how to read the documentation also. So some of the tools and technologies that we would be using, you will see I'll be using the official documentation, and that's how as engineers we need to understand how to learn how to use the documentation of any given technology. Okay, the first thing they're saying is if you want to use Bootstrap, the first thing is we need to include this in our HTML file. Okay, remember Google Fonts, we did the same thing, right? We included Google Fonts. If you want to use Bootstrap, you're going to include the CSS file, and then we're going to look at some of the components. All right, now in the example you saw some JavaScript files. All right, for now don't worry about the JavaScript files or including these. For now we can we'll use the components that do not use this. Why? If you look over here, they're saying if you want to use some of the components that use JavaScript, if you expand this, these are the components that are using these three files. For now, since we are starting, we don't have to worry about these. We'll look at some of the components that don't use this. Okay. Later on in your assignment or your homework, if you want to use some advanced components, then what you have to do is you have to use these three JavaScript files, include them at the bottom of your code. Okay. For now, don't worry about it. The only things is that you won't be able to use these things. Okay, and these things are more interactive. So for now, we don't have any interaction in our website, so we don't have to worry about these for now. Okay. So the first thing is we're going to create a HTML. We are going to include this, and then we are going to start using Bootstrap. All right. So let's go ahead. Go back to my examples, and then all right, so this is done. Let's go ahead and create Bootstrap there. Okay, same thing, I'm going to create an index.html, and then I'm going to create a oh, actually I don't need a style CSS. Okay, create an HTML and then include this. So copy and then just paste it. Okay, there's no CSS, my custom CSS. I just included what they're saying, include this CSS file, and then I can go ahead and start using Bootstrap. All right, next I'm going to come to components, and then you will see they have all these components available to us that we can use. Okay, let's start with Jumbotron. Let's see what Jumbotron is. So if you use the code below, this is what you're going to get. So Jumbotron is the one that if you go back to your example, you will see a big heading with a button and some text. So this is called in Bootstrap language a Jumbotron. So if I want to create this component, all I have to do is copy this code, and then let's go back here. In my body tag, include this. And let's go ahead and open this. There's my Jumbotron. Okay. One of the good things about Bootstrap is by default it is mobile friendly. What it means is if you are creating a website using Bootstrap, it is responsive and it's going to kind of change stuff on its own. This is not easy. You guys are going to see how you have to do it without Bootstrap and how do we do it with Bootstrap. Right? Without Bootstrap, it's not as easy as it looks like. All right. You guys have your portfolio. I know some people were asking. We are going to get there. Okay. But Bootstrap by default comes built in with this responsiveness. All right. It's called responsive. Your website is responsive. What it means is it can render on any size of the screen. Okay. So right now I have my Jumbotron. Let's look at some of the other components. Let's say I want to create buttons. Okay, let's copy warning. Oh, danger. Let's try this one. So my Jumbotron ends over here. I'm going to create a button after that. Okay. That's how simple it is if you're using Bootstrap. Let's suppose you need a nav bar. Okay. Let's go back here. This is the nav bar by default, so you can copy this code. Let's go back here. Let's add my nav bar here. Let's go back here, and my nav bar shows up over there, right? You guys are working your homework. You guys know how difficult it is to create a nav bar, right? Right? And is it easy now? I mean, I can change these because it's at this point, right? We know enough. We can actually search for this nav bar, right? We can change the name for whatever we want. That's much easier than actually creating the whole thing. This is it, right? Right, and that's it. And my nav bar changes, right? And it's responsive. What was that? And it's mobile friendly. Look what happens to the nav bar when I come to see that, right? Yes. Is it as customizable? It is as customizable as the documentation says. But here, let me go back to, let's say, buttons. Okay, so by default, Bootstrap is giving you only these colors. Okay, now if I don't like this color, can I change it? Yeah, right? This is open source. You have the code over here. And how do I change it? Create your own style CSS, right? Put it second after Bootstrap. What's going to happen? Your style is going to replace this color. Yeah, we can do that. Totally customizable, as much as you want, right? But if you like the colors over here, these are given. You can create a whole website without actually writing a single line of CSS, just using Bootstrap. It's going to be responsive. It's going to have all these components that you want. I know some people said it's depressing, and that's the right definition, and that's right. This means you actually learned something with CSS, and now when I show you this, you are like, okay, I really appreciate it, right? If I showed you this before, the appreciation is missed out, and you will see there are other things that we're going to learn in this course. We'll take the initial path without any help, and then I'm going to show you there are libraries that help with it, and that's what it makes a difference. Okay. Let's see what else. Card. This is a nice one. I like this one. So just with this, you can create. You must have seen some website which have those nice card titles and kind of this information, right? They're probably just using Bootstrap and kind of looks fancy. Let's see. Let's add our card after our button. So I'm going to get an error because I don't have the image over here. The source, you see, it's kind of empty. So it might get, yeah, it's missing the image. So just put an image over here and it's going to show up over here, right? In their example, behind the scene, they actually have an image. Use the placeholder website and you can get an image and put it over here. Okay. Let's see what else. You have forms, input forms. All right, you can get this form with this code. It does this for you. Carousel, that's a nice one too, but I think you need JavaScript for this. So this is without the JavaScript, but if you want some interaction, you see this is changing. The code is same, just need to remember, include those two JavaScript files. Go back to the getting started, read the documentation, include those two files, and you will be able to use this one as well. Okay? All right, any questions? Other than why are we not using this right now? Okay. All right. So let's do an activity. Go ahead, and this is activity. Actually, 01. All right. Do this. Go ahead. Exactly do the same thing that I did. All right. Create an HTML file. Look at getting started and see how you can add the CSS and try some different components over here. See which components you can use and render them on your web page. All right, we'll take 15, 20 minutes. This is funny that when I do it, people are like, yeah, I get it. But when you guys, you start doing it, it's a little bit different. So give it a try. Make sure you are able to load these components. Start with the CSS. If you are comfortable with this, then head to this part. But first of all, do this. Look at the components, look at the documentation, and make sure you are able to load some of the components.
This is a key component. Well, that's what I figured. I mean, where is it come from? Yeah, you can put, you have to put another I completely missed him doing that. You want to do this work? I do. How many of these do you want to do?
also explore the website. Components are or scroll down. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they never estimated that everybody would want the cash. You know what? Never mind.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Well, the thing is, when you will do homework two, you will be using this guy. That's it. That will be so difficult. You will be using some. It is so good. What is it? I know, right? That's how I do it. It's stuff showing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't know if like.
Which is very
So it's free to us.
This, yeah, that always kind of.
Because if you can bootstrap, you're getting certifications, and you see this.
Yeah.
This is an ad or something like that. So
Taxes paid, taxes paid. Yeah, you see all the lines.
oh yeah, it is.
Well, and I think what ended up happening is build out more and more complexity is stuff starts to get pushed over I've actually changed, you can change the settings, so right now, it says 5 or 5 spaces. And so that I have. Once I start building out, select that. You get, I mean, right here, you want to turn on. Yeah. Because otherwise, it's where the end of your. So it's just. And actually, there's, you can explore some of these things. I know some of them will come up in class, but there's a ton of and even like this one, I think, has there too. So you can put that one. It's going to tell you, show you some of the things that it does. You got it. Yeah. It looks like you've already got it enabled. But it's probably not everybody comes out. Oh, there are some other tag ones.
The live server maybe is also understanding what it does. But like some
How long did you live in Bentonville for?
6 years.
6 years. I used to live there for just about a year. My grandparents lived in Bella Vista for.
Oh
They
yeah.
retired there for a long time.
Oh okay yeah.
But,
Oh.
yeah, when I was a kid, my dad worked for Arvest.
Oh bank.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just either Arvest, Walmart, or Tyson Foods.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Have you visited Benton recently? It has changed a lot.
No, it's been a long time because my grandparents that lived there moved to Chicago.
Okay.
I had some other family in Searcy, which is not It's like on the other side of the state. Well, not quite the other side, but yeah, I haven't been to Bentonville in a long time.
Yeah, it has changed a lot.
Yeah.
Yep, 6 years.
It was like in 2002 when I lived there.
Oh, you won't even recognize.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
I just remember when I was a kid. I was like in grade school or junior high, and we went on like a field trip to the Walmart Museum.
Oh, yeah.
That's funny, but-
Yeah. That's still there. It's probably.
Oh, I'm sure in like the town square.
Yeah, I don't see.
So if you go,
They've put in a lot of money in Bentonville just to attract talent over there.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I believe. I mean, is that what where all of their
ID thing.
IT
Yeah.
stuff is out of Bentonville?
Yeah. Well, now within last 3 years, they opened offices in Silicon Valley, San Bruno, and someplace in California. But still, the main headquarters for IT is still Bentonville. But they're kind of they try their best. I mean, you can only attract so much talent in Bentonville, Arkansas, right?
Those are beautiful.
Yeah. But not everybody is as comfortable. Like, what? Arkansas? I don't know about it. So they had to open like a couple of offices in California just to attract that talent over there too. But yeah, just to attract more talent, they put in a lot of money in the city just to make more attractive to people who are coming here.
Cool. Maybe someday. Because I go on road trips every once in a while, and I always like driving through that area, that part of the U.S. because it's
Okay, yeah,
the North Mountains are nice.
right. Yeah. They have really nice mountain biking trails and all that stuff. It's super nice. Hiking trails. Yeah.
So where did you work before Walmart?
So I was in Dallas, in Plano, Texas, for PepsiCo. I was there for like
That's right.
3 years.
I was in Texas 1.2. I was in Corpus Christi was where I'm originally
Oh,
from.
okay, yeah. So I was there in Plano for like 3.5 years.
It's like hitting all the places in the U.S. that would seem like would be places that tech people would not want to live through.
Yeah. Somebody, whenever I told anybody been to Arkansas, they're like, Arkansas. They would like look at me, and be like, what are you doing in Arkansas? You don't belong in Arkansas.
Yeah, right.
I was like, yeah. Plano, Texas is still. They have now Toyota over there. And Cisco is there. AT&T had an office over there. PepsiCo is there, of course. Frito-Lay. That area, I think it's called headquarters and Legacy Drive, and they had like a lot of big companies over there. Not especially IT. Well, Intuit is there, so that's kind of more IT. But they have a big presence over there for bigger companies. So over here in Phoenix, you're working for.
I got like a small agency called Synapse Studios.
Okay.
I worked for Intel for
Oh.
the last 4.5 years,
Okay.
and then just kind of I switched from one job that I had for like almost all my time at Intel to another job that I thought was going to be like bigger and better, and it was I wasn't enjoying it, and I was also kind of thinking I just wanted to try something outside of like kind of corporate world,
Right.
and so I got this job at like a little small like agency type of thing.
Right.
Plus, I was doing the same skills. I wanted to learn something new.
I think that's the phase I'm going through. USA is nice, but I'm kind of bored. So
Yeah.
I found another like a mid-sized company in Chandler. It's called Keep now. Well, it was called Infusionsoft earlier. They rebranded themselves to Keep.
I've looked at the stuff that Infusionsoft before. I talked to them on the phone once.
Yeah. They've offered me like a really nice package, so I'm gonna move over there. It's I won't say it's a downgrade, but it's a smaller company that I've been working from
Yeah.
versus the corporate America. So I was like,
It's like hard to beat the benefits that those big companies can
Yeah.
give you. That was like the
Right.
thing for me. And I was like, well, now when I do have like a kid, I'm not gonna get that big fat, they're like nice
Yeah.
bonding leave and
Right.
stock options are no longer
Yeah.
there. But
Yeah.
I figure, if I can get a job there once and get a job there again, I need to.
Right, but some of these mid-sized companies are pretty good. I mean, if you want to try Keep, well, they're not public company. They're like still pre-IPO. I mean, their stock doesn't really matter, but they're still giving. Eventually, I hope they go public now since
Yeah.
I'm going to get their stock. So I'm going to hope for that. But not really small, but like a mid-sized company who are more like IT oriented. We'll get some big good benefits over there too.
Yeah.
Are you looking to?
Well, I'm probably gonna stick with my job right now that
Okay.
I have because I was doing. I'm like learning like React and stuff for this job.
Okay.
So I kind of want to get a good grasp on that just to check
For
it out.
sure. Yeah.
Just to say that I know how to
Right.
do all that and
How long have you been with this company?
2.5 months.
Oh.
So yeah, I need some more time to.
Yeah.
The only thing that so it's like a agency, so all like my hours are billable to clients, which is kind of a pain in the ass because it's a little bit more where you have to be worrying about like, the amount of time you're spending on a project as opposed to just kind of like at the end of the sprint, here's what I've done what I'm supposed to do. Like it's a little bit more like you have to like they bill the client by the day. So
So is it like you have to be there at certain time and then you have to?
it's not like strict, like especially for like an established person. They know like I'm gonna do some good stuff for them. It's more. It's like it makes that like we're at Intel, like I wouldn't even second guess like I need to leave like 3 hours early today for whatever contractor coming or whatever. It's a little bit more like I'll make up this time on for this day for the client for another day. So it's not that big a deal, but it's just it's a little bit less flexible.
Yeah, I usually give like at least a year, between a year and 2 years, and see if I'm enjoying the company. Definitely not less than a year. And then if it doesn't work out, then after a year, I can try to find something.
Yeah. That's what I gotta do as well. Can't jump from one because I was only at that one job at Intel for like 4 months before I decided that I wanted to leave Intel.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Cool. Best of luck. Well, you will learn a lot of React in this course.
Yeah, no.
Free
I mean, I've been doing it now for
Yeah.
a couple of months, so I hope that I'm doing React Native right now. I'm working on a mobile application. Which I think I like web development better.
Okay.
Working stuff.
Oh yeah.
And you're Java guy, right? Like, all that stuff. So I have to dig around in there every once in a while. I don't know if you've ever done anything with React Native or anything like that.
I've looked at it, not professionally, just on my free time, just for the class if I want to. In this course, we get, I don't know if it's going to change this time, we get like a week that's open to any topics I want to. So I try to do Redux and then sometimes React Native. So just about that, yeah. But it's just the basic, like setting it up and showing how to do it. But I haven't actually worked on it like you probably have. That oh, these are the issues with React Native. Yeah, I probably.
I'll let you know in a few months.
Yeah.
More issues with it.
Sounds good. All right, how's everyone doing? Were you guys able to get Bootstrap, show up some components? Anybody having issues? Good. All right. Well, I'm not going to introduce. I'm going to just give you a quick overview for Saturday, because if I start getting into the stuff right now, it's going to be like too much for you guys. So you see the problem over here. I mean, Bootstrap is good, but you see this layout over here. It's kind of in the corner, right? How do I bring this, kind of align these two things? What would I have to do? margin, padding, some kind of those stuff, right? Do you have an idea?
Margin left.
Right. So I'll have to write some custom CSS, right? Um, but that's not the case, right? I mean, yes, you can write margin, padding, or whatever left, floated, and all that stuff, but that's still a lot of CSS that I have to write. Bootstrap also kind of takes care of this thing, okay? So on Saturday, I'm going to show you without even writing custom CSS, how do you align these things from this, from that side, kind of make it look nicer. If you see the web page that we were looking at, this one, see how nicely it's aligned, right? There's no custom CSS, there's no margin, there's no padding. If you looked at the code for this, it's still HTML, right? But to understand how to get to this point, it's called layout. This thing. This is the crux of Bootstrap, right? You cannot be successful in using Bootstrap unless you understand the layout system that Bootstrap brings. It's extremely, once you understand it, it's really, really good, right? But the thing is, it does have a learning curve. But you cannot be successful in using Bootstrap unless you understand the layout of Bootstrap projects. They use a something called a grid system, and I'm not going to go in details right now. I'm going to do this on Saturday, so that's why I'm going to dedicate the whole day in understanding the layout or the grid system that Bootstrap brings. Okay, again, that's the crux. It is extremely important that we understand the grid system of Bootstrap. Otherwise, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get this, and then you will have to write some custom CSS, try to fix this. But if you understand the grid system, you will be able to create a page like this without even writing a single CSS, a custom CSS. Okay, it's going to be responsive. Oops, let's go back here. Okay, you see how responsive it is? Okay, this is all because this code is using the grid layout or the grid system that Bootstrap defines. Okay, so I'll be here Saturday. I'll go over this. Again, it does have a little bit learning curve, but I'm happy that it's on a Saturday morning, so you guys will be fresh. And we'll start with the layout. We'll start looking at the grid system. Again, I'm going to start with the concept first. How do we define the grid system, and then we'll look at some of the coding part. Okay. We're still having half an hour. I want you guys to work on your homework. If you have questions, I'm going to give you those 30 minutes back. And then on Saturday, we'll look at the layout system for Bootstrap. Okay? All right, I'll see you guys on Saturday. You have time, work on your homework. You have questions, we are here. Make sure you get your question answered, because Saturday you have to submit the homework. Okay? And then on Saturday, we'll introduce a second homework as well.